You're listening to Draw 4 Podcast. Good tidings, and thanks for joining us. My name is James Kelley. I'm part of the production team here for Draw 4, and I also play Modern and Casual.
My name is Joshua Kelley. I also play Modern. I'm also a member of the production team.
Hi, my name is Austin. I'm the guest today, and I enjoy Modern and doing FNM.
Austin, it's nice to actually have you on.
Yeah, I enjoy being here.
Alright, so for this week, we're going to be talking about cards that are taking effect in Standard that could really hit off in Modern as well as other formats as well, and then the community topic. So we're going into the Upkeep right now. Untap, Upkeep, Draw. Kalitas, Trader of Get, and Drana, Liberator, Malakir are causing black-white vampires and allies to become a stronger and stronger deck. Control is becoming more and more prominent, especially with Reflector Mage, as well as the bannings and unbannings to help those decks become more prevalent. Austin, I know that you had talked to me about a card, Secure the Wastes, and that will absolutely be a beast for token-based strategies, whether it's you need a lot of bodies to block an attack, or give yourself something to sacrifice and feed a bigger entity. Do you want to discuss that a little bit better?
As a Soul Sister player myself, Secure the Waste has a very special position in mono white decks or anything that splashes heavily white or anything that just runs white at all, because it's an instant speed, 1 cost X. So at the end of your turn, you could fill your field up, or during attack phase, you could tap all your on-tap mana into playing this one card that could give you as many body blockers as you're allowed to pay for. So that in turn could really cause a different turnout of the games, because if they're swinging in with a 5/5 creature that you can't do anything about until you tap your mana and you block with 5, then you're able to kill that creature, and that was at their turn, so you still have your turn to be able to react. It's even making its play in Standard right now, which is why it's had such a high price increase, because there is blue-white control coming on right now. And a modern combo, or a standard combo right now, is Westfell Abbey with Secure the Waste, because at the end of their turn, they're tapped out, you play Secure the Waste for 4 or 5, however it may be, and then you can Westfell Abbey, and then you have 8/9 creature, I believe, that's indestructible on your turn swinging in for them.
Ew.
Yeah, that's just disgusting.
And for those that don't know, last we had looked, Secure the Waste is about $12 average price, would you say?
$11, $12. So yeah, it's definitely had that price increase, but of course, it's worth it just considering the strategies it's a part of. And then obviously for green-based strategies, Coco is running rampant, especially within, I think, the last Pro Tour they had. Green-white tokens was a thing, and of course Coco just ran rampant with it.
Don't forget about green-red, because being able to fetch up those werewolves was fun.
Yeah, pretty much anything that is green-based, as long as it has green in it, Coco's pretty much there.
It's everywhere.
It's definitely a strong card in Modern.
Yeah, hence why it's still at $25.
Next up, red is Reckless Bushwhacker and Goblin Dark Dwellers, obviously for Goblin's sakes. Standard, I don't really know of too many strategies unless you guys have any.
Reckless Bushwhacker is run just because it comes in, and with the surge cost, it's very efficient. And you can swing in with the team, catch them off guard, deal damage. Goblin Dark Dwellers is just an all-around really good card because you flashback for free, instant and sorcery with converted mana cost 3 or less. And it also has a menace, so it's a 4/4, almost always unblockable, that's going to deal some damage.
Right. Yeah, there's been some standard and some modern goblin strategies going around, more so modern, with 8-whack being a thing now. It's more of a support than I would say anything else, but it can be its own standalone deck. Things that I've seen for it, oddly enough, also have to deal with green-red. Funny enough, Coco, goblins, I've very rarely seen it be a thing, but it has popped up every now and again.
Ew.
Yeah, but like I said, it's a support thing. It's more helping something else get to the end goal, which is beat face with goblins and other things.
Well, I mean, obviously, you gotta have a strategy to go for it.
Yeah.
So if it works, it works. Next up, Storm Chaser Mage. Josh, you'll love this one. It's definitely given Izzet aggro strategies a huge boost in playability, especially with like Monastery Swiftspear and stuff like that. So you basically can take control, or basically a shell of like the old Splinter Twin decks and things like that, and then burn decks and then just combine them together and have a baby.
Well, there's that. There's Jeskai.
Could have Grixis become a thing with that kind of stuff.
Could be Grixis. Teamer can be a thing with it. That is if we're just solely focusing on Storm Chaser Mage as its own entity. And then the last one in the room.
The Eldrazi. They got nerfed big time for Modern with the banning of Ivugin, but some decks I have seen recently are utilizing the Eldrazi in ways we didn't really think of initially. I know last night, the 11th of May, I got my butt kicked by a black-white Soul Sisters Eldrazi control sort of deck. that was very interesting to say the least, because I was just like, what is this? Because it had Eldrazi Displacer, Thought-Knot Seers, it pumped tokens with all that fun stuff, and I was just like, I don't even think this guy's actually got the final, like, WinCon stuff.
Yeah, he was also playing like the Taxes version of it with Leon and Arbiter, so he had some control in there too.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That was a pain in the butt.
Ew, Eldrazi, Death and Taxes.
Yeah, it was very interesting to say the least, especially considering I was testing out a Grixis Death Shadow deck, so obviously I'm nerfing myself, but then at the same time, I have all the fetches I have, so if I can't fetch, I'm not killing myself, and I'm also not cycling through my deck and getting my lands. So that was a big pain in the butt.
Just a side note, just because I'm curious, did he happen to have Secure the Waste in there?
No, not that I know of. Like I said, I didn't see everything.
He actually showed me his deck list,
Really?
and he had 3 of them in the sideboard.
Oh, okay, so they were there, they just weren't as prominent as we would have thought.
Yeah, of course.
Alright,
But I mean, sideboarding is also a very
Yeah.
important strategy.
obviously.
Like, I run Darknesses and Damnations in my sideboard, and I was just like, thank God I had you.
Yeah,
I didn't win a lot of it, but
you were just holding off the inevitable.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So anyways, getting into Shadows over Innistrad stuff, there's a lot of things that could be fun for Modern whenever it gets into it. Like Thing in the Ice, that could be good for, obviously, your Is It strategies, Josh.
Maybe.
Things like that, because just of all the quick spells that can go off with it.
And also blue-eye control.
Yep.
Oh yeah, Blue-Eye Control, just go to town with it. Tireless Tracker, obviously, is, a
Another
huge
good
thing
one.
right now.
Yeah.
Especially for green. But of course, it's worth the price tag for what it has.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those cards that we gotta see how, whenever it rotates out of standard, how it'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just currently for the time being, with the meta the way it is, Tireless Tracker, it's obviously worth its price.
Yeah, definitely, of course.
Totally.
And then, of course, a card that we all thought was hysterical was Triskaidekaphobia. That more so was for, like, commander-based games and things like that. But, of course, it could be fun to see how it goes with, like, standard or modern. Especially if it's just a fun little deck you want to play around with.
From what I was seeing all over the place in terms of people talking about their pre-releases and all that stuff, I was really surprised how many people were winning games with that card in their decks and just basing strategies around it. It's just one of those funny cards that I'm happy is around just because, why not?
Yeah, and one card I do think that we forgot to mention was, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but Westvale Abbey.
Yeah,
Westvale.
A lot of modern decks are running it as a one-of, like the guy who was playing Boros Sisters last night.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
He had that as a one-of, because it can end up being a win con.
It can.
Just a bit. But yeah, that's Westvale Abbey, just a really big pain in the butt.
Yeah, that can be. And now it's time for the Manaleak article of the week. We actually have a tie for 2 of them. One of them being, is the future of Magic the Gathering organized play in jeopardy? That was written by Joseph Dunlap. It was actually a pretty interesting article to read, just talking about how a lot of the LGSs in the United Kingdom are having to deal with not only limited space because of how small some of the shops are, but also just having to see how Wizards is handling the situations.
Yeah, of course, obviously with cities like that, you gotta build up instead of out. So like New York City and things like that, being up in like 2-3 level buildings for game stores and stuff like that necessarily isn't a bad thing. I can see how it's a pain in the butt, especially with having to go to like the main counter and things like that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just as like reading the article, there were some shops that actually have to go like either down the street to a pub and play. It's just interesting seeing how some of these shops operate. And I mean, it's good for them that they're finding ways around it.
You also gotta think it does take away from the profit of the shops are getting if half their players can't play in the shop.
Oh yeah, totally. There's that, but also the fact of Wizards is noticing how small some of these shops are, and some of them have been losing their
royalties that they get from Wizard.
royalties, they've been losing their player points, they've been losing their accounts. Most of those are up and running again now, but it's just the fact that it's happening in the first place is kind of odd.
There has to be some sort of consideration considering how everything is, especially with that article. It's like, if you're losing your status as a store, especially within the player network of Wizards, it's like there's a problem. It's like you gotta have some accommodation, some sort of compromise with that between Wizards and the stores for that sort of, issue that comes up. Because it's like, not every city is going to have the exact same sized store. They have to accommodate to, how big of a player basis they have. And They also have to accommodate, not even just for Magic the Gathering in general, but just other games that get played as well.
Hopefully they can figure something out, because it's always nice to have a bigger player base, especially for stuff like FNMs and stuff like that, because I'm a big supporter of FNMs and having the community get together and enjoying something that everyone enjoys doing. So hopefully they could figure out a way around this problem and get everything back on track.
And like we had mentioned, this is a tie for Article of the Week. The other one, James, if you want to chime in on this.
Yeah, the other Article of the Week that we suggest is Top 5 Tips to Help You in Any Magic the Gathering Grand Prix by Graham McIntyre. And I actually had a very thorough time reading this article, and it was a very well written one too. And it was actually a surprise of how many common considerations that most people take for granted for that kind of thing. It's like personal hygiene, financial stability, making sure that you're within your budget and means of spending at these things.
Being fiscally responsible.
Making sure your attitude's still positive and, going through just playing Magic and things like that. You don't want to be that guy, who just decides to, table flip out of rage or something like that at a Grand Prix. It's like, you can't do that. You have to have a behavioral leash on yourself, especially if you're that kind of a person who has a little bit of anger issues with that sort of thing. You have to just watch yourself, especially considering it's a judged event and there's thousands of people there, not only for playing Magic, but also just to get autographs and speak to artists of cards, vendors in general as well, buying and selling and things like that. So you just gotta watch yourself whenever you go into a Grand Prix. I know all of us want to go to a Grand Prix. Obviously, with time constraints with school, that wasn't able to happen. But, sometime down the road, we could possibly do it.
I feel like a Grand Prix, you should definitely hold yourself to a higher standard than a normal FNM because it is a bigger event. And just like you said, you have to be able to learn how to manage yourself to make the environment around, because if there's a certain few people that do not manage themselves appropriately at a Grand Prix, then it looks bad on the whole community as a whole, which could hurt all of us.
Oh yeah, and we don't want that.
No one wants that.
Because we're a very open and inclusive community instead of being exclusive. I know with everything that's been going around recently, especially with feminists and things like that, it's like we're a very open community with that stuff. Obviously, us being friends and everything, we have 3-4 females that play Magic, and, we're all fine with it. We all have fun. We make sarcastic, snarky remarks just because we're all good friends. But of course, we have to watch our behaviors whenever we're out, like obviously at our local game stores and stuff like that, just because you don't know how everyone else is. You can get a general vibe from everyone, just how they hold themselves, but it's just like I had said, the article stated a lot of very common stuff that you necessarily would think, oh, that's a no-duh, but it's a surprise at how many people actually don't really take that into consideration.
Yeah, I definitely would agree on that. It's just the whole feminism thing. That's a different.
Yeah, that's a different.
We're not going to touch those waters.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to mention it just because it's like I said, us having friends that are females that play Magic is great. Yep. It's just like with everything else that goes around, it's just like some of the things I had read and heard about Magic players that are females going to local game stores and wanting to play. A lot of the people there just shrugged them off, and I was just like, why?
Well, it's still under the concept that Magic the Gathering is still a mainly boy sport. That's kind of like how it went through with stuff like video games. So we just have to hope that people start to realize that it's not a monosex game, but it's a game for everyone.
Obviously.
Yeah, I would also say, not just it being an inclusive game, it's also a very encouraging game. Austin, we were the ones that encouraged you to play because you just came up to us one day last fall and was just like, Magic, you want to join?
Yeah, it's a good conversation starter for almost everyone. And if they could get into it and enjoy it, they see that their community around them increases. And like what happened in college, my friend base increased significantly because I played Magic.
Oh yeah, totally.
You've really blossomed as a player, I have to say. Josh and I have our tropes and everything like that with Magic the Gathering and have played for a little bit longer, but just considering how far your knowledge and understanding of the game's concerned, you've probably, by leaps and bounds, passed Josh and I.
Oh yeah, totally.
Well, thanks. I think it's just a matter of how you want to take it, because many people could take Magic as either casual or they could go into more of a competitive side. And that's why I think it's such a good game, because you have all these different formats that you gain accustomed to, and you could also construct it to how you want to play. It could either be a kitchen top game, or you can go and do stuff like FNM and try to be a little bit more competitive with it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, of course, there's getting into, obviously, the Grand Prix, PPTQs, and stuff like that.
That's hardcore competitive.
Oh yeah, that's really crazy competitive.
That's when it's just those players that just play online like hours at a time, try and get actual paper Magic going on whenever they possibly can. That's when it's like seriously hardcore.
Have you guys watched the Enter the Battlefield documentary that was put up recently?
No, I didn't, and I have actually wanted to.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of personal YouTubers accounts that are big in the Magic community that had their thoughts on it.
A lot of people, especially considering, the payment of the pros and stuff like that in the lawsuit with the judges, there's a lot of socioeconomical and political issues that are going on within it. Not to take away from the production of the documentary itself. Putting all those issues aside, it was, from what I've heard, a very well put together documentary that was based around Magic.
All the political and other things aside involving players and WotC, it was just about people who play Magic, and I can appreciate it for what it was worth. Very well produced, very well rehearsed, and it was just very interesting to see how the lives of Magic players go on a day-to-day basis, especially during competitive play. Okay, before we get too far off topic here, James, what would you say be the next topic of conversation?
Community topic. I had mentioned this card earlier, and considering we're recording on May the 12th, tomorrow's Friday the 13th, woo, all that spooky, creepy stuff, I'm curious to see how many people are going to run decks with Triskaidekaphobia at all. Obviously considering I mentioned it earlier, it's, good to bring it back up. And I know, like I said, a bunch of us found it was going to be a hysterical card when it was first announced, and I know Josh, you had said in the pre-release of Shadows Over Innistrad, it was a really good card against a lot of people, and it's just, you gotta see how it goes in later formats. So I wonder how many people are gonna run it at all.
I would say quite a few, considering most of the articles that I saw asking about it were talking about standard, but there were some modern tournaments going around that people were saying they were going to want to play it at, if not then over the weekend, because some LGSs have modern tournaments over the weekends. So I would say at least quite a few people would be playing Triskaidekaphobia, because it has a viable strategy if you know how to build the shell for it.
I agree. It's one of those cards that seems kind of off the wall, but it could be fun to build around and try to get to that 13 life. So I think it would definitely be a fun card to play.
Definitely something interesting to look forward to. Diverting from the community topic into the community question, although we can combine the two together, what do you, as players and or fans of the game, do to prepare for a large tournament? And obviously we mean anything bigger than an FNM or a game day event at your local LGS. And then of course we also want to know, did anyone run Triskaidekaphobia on Friday the 13th? Throw that at the Manaleak's website, throw it onto the Facebook, comment it on YouTube, things of that nature. Alright, so I'm guessing it's time to end this.
Aww.
This is honestly a quick episode.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it very much. Enjoyed talking about anything Magic. And yeah, just thanks for having me again. I'm Austin Henry.
My name is Joshua Kelley. I'm a member of the production team here for Draw 4.
I'm James Kelley. I'm also a member of the production team. This has been Draw 4 Podcast. Until next time, we wish you good fortune and may you draw well.